So, what do we have today? This is a poem called Acts of Helplessness. And just so you know, I'm reading from the Coleman Barks translations, the essential Rumi here. So keep that in mind. Here are the miracle signs you want. That you cry through the night and get up at dawn asking that in the absence of what you ask for, your day gets dark, your neck thin as a spindle, that what you give away is all your own, that you sacrifice belongings, sleep, health, your head, that you often sit down in a fire like aloes wood, and often go out to meet a blade like a battered helmet. When acts of helplessness become habitual, those are signs. You can run back and forth listening for unusual events, peering into the faces of travelers. Why are you looking at me like a madman? I have lost a friend. Please forgive me. Searching like that does not fail. There will come a rider who holds you close. You faint and gibber. The uninitiated say, he's faking. How could they know? Water washes over a beached fish, the water of those signs I just mentioned. Excuse my wandering. How can one be orderly with this? It's like counting leaves in a garden, along the song notes of partridges and crows. Sometimes organization and computation become absurd. So this is a great place to start. It's got so many of the themes that I love Rumi's poems for. So let's just take a second to take in all that. There's a lot happening, a lot going on in this poem. So I want to start with this idea of acts of helplessness becoming habitual and treating those as signs. And this is, on one level, about surrender, right? Surrendering to our own perceived inadequacies, the things that we feel like keep us from, separate us from being more whole or being with God, I might say. And when we continually find ourselves in situations where we're feeling desperate, we're feeling thin, right? Like that battered helmet going out into battle every day. Like that's a sign, right? And signs don't have to be, God reaching down and grabbing us by the back of our neck. Sometimes the sign that's most powerful is in that helplessness, right? That moment of weakness, that habitual desperation that we can fall into. And you can try to search for a way out, right? Try to look for some savior to come get you. But it's not necessary, in my perception. It's about understanding that everything can be treated as a sign, and that sometimes the sign and the path out is actually contained within the perceived problem, if that makes sense. And the other thing that I want to pull out of here that's really important to Rumi's work and my work is that searching like that does not fail, right? This running around like a madman doesn't fail, And to me, this just means like if we're earnest in reaching out and searching for God, if we're habitual with that, right? Habitual with this reaching out and this searching for answers, searching for signs, we might get rejected a lot along the way. The first 5 travelers we grab looking for help, reaching out for a sign might turn us away, but that 6th one might have just what we need. And so, that moment too, right? This transition from being the helpless, desperate person reaching out for help, and when that traveler comes along, holds us hugs us, acknowledges us in the gloriousness of our vulnerability and our weaknesses. It's gonna cause this collapse within us, this faint and gibbering, and people might say, "Oh, well, they're faking, right? How could they have gone from this state to this?" Well, it's just that act of love, right? That act of acknowledgement, that confirmation that we receive after this perpetual searching and the dissatisfaction with what we receive back until we're not dissatisfied anymore. And the wandering in the poem is this metaphor, we'll just say, to keep it simple, for this wandering that we do as spiritual seekers sometimes, and not always knowing the path forward, not always even having the strength to be able to take those next steps on our own, and really needing that help. And I think Rumi would say that, like, being exposed, being in our vulnerability fully, being willing to just open up our bare, exposed chest to the divine is all you have to do. Like, that's the necessary step. And then the last piece here that I'll draw out, that again is this common theme within mysticism, within Rumi's work in particular here, is that sometimes organization and computation become absurd, right? And so I tie this into thinking about the spiritual community, the personal development community, right? Like, there's this really masculine thread that's running through all of it, even as we're like all calling in like the divine feminine and working with that energy and so forth. There's still like this very masculine thing to a lot of the personal development. Like, what is my problem? What am I fixing? Like, let me bring this in. But sometimes that organization, right? The computation, the calculations, the precision, the logic becomes kind of an absurd endeavor when it's in the context of spirituality, of trying to understand, quote unquote, God, right? Because ultimately that is beyond our comprehension as human beings, right? We can get connection with it, we can get glimpses of it, signs of it, we can feel it within ourselves, but like the idea of like being able to translate that, and the idea of having a poem that kind of communicates this soul's journey, this reaching out, this seeking, in a way that's just sort of logical and linear is absurd, right? And we can apply that to our own lives and our own process and our own seeking, because to give ourselves a break, right? Because we don't always have to be stepping, making the next logical step, right? Or clearly even making progress, that sometimes progress isn't visible from the place that we are in the moment right now. It only becomes apparent to us from some other place down the road, and sometimes we need another person to reflect back to us and say, hey, wow, like, you've really made some good progress here. I really acknowledge you. I see you in that. So those are my first thoughts on this poem in particular. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to be able to release many more to you in the days and months and years to come.